At UMC, access to your health care is only a call away. Dial 74NURSE for free, instant medical advice from experienced and trusted UMC nurses, 24 hours a day. Learn more at umchealthsystem.com.
And welcome in everyone to RedRaiders.com. This is the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. Zach Long with Don Williams and Krista Pirtle. And of course this week the Texas Tech Red Raiders opened their Big 12 slate against the TCU Horned Frogs earlier on Thursday night, national television, a big one, Don. A little odd though that the Big 12 conference game comes this early in the Red Raiders schedule.
That's right, Zach. This is only the third time since 1997 that Tech has played a conference opener in week 3. Hosted a conference opener in week 3. The only other times were against the Texas Longhorns, 0-1, 0-9, and 10, and none of those worked out very well for the Red Raiders.
That's why we put you on the show, Donald, because he is a walking dictionary of Texas Tech facts. But before we get into the depth of the TCU-Texas Tech matchup, let's take a quick visit back to last week's win. Of course, the Red Raiders drill Stephen F. Austin 61-13. And guys, if I turn to a key moment for you from that game, obviously there was a lot of them with 61 points, but Krista, we'll start with you. What stuck in your mind from the Red Raiders win over the Lumberjacks?
I think a big moment was the turnover that Tech got in the first half when Dartwan Bush forced the fumble and then Jackson Richards recovered it. That is the first time since the Baylor game in 2011 that the Tech defense both forced and recovered a fumble.
Dom, what was the key moment in your mind?
I think it was the entire first quarter, Zach, because when you have an FCS team coming in, particularly an FCS team with what happened the week before with all those little schools winning, I think the key thing is to get those teams like that down early so that you extinguish any ideas of an upset, and that's exactly what Tech did. Baker Mayfield comes out and first 4 possessions, 4 touchdowns for the Red Raiders. It's 28-7, and you can see that the Red Raiders are pretty well going to roll in that one.
A good group of key plays indeed, but right now that must be forgotten because the competition level, guys, steps up in a big way with the TCU Horned Frogs. We call this segment Know Your Enemy. Don, why don't you give us a key point for TCU?
Key point for TCU, I think, is their defense. I mean, that's what they're known for. That's what they hang their hats on. And last year, Texas Tech really got the better of TCU's defense, scoring 56 points. Of course, that came with the help of 3 overtimes, but nevertheless, the 56 points that Tech scored against the Horned Frogs last year was by far the most that anybody scored against TCU. And so I think the Horned Frogs may be motivated to show that, in their minds at least, that was a fluke.
Krista, what sticks out to you?
I'm going off what Don said. I'm going to be more specific though and say the defensive line. We've talked about it a lot, that Tech's offensive line is its main weakness, so the TCU defensive line has prime opportunity to shake things up for Baker Mayfield and to make it tough for him. Also, the linebackers will be coming up and putting pressure on him, so I think that the battle will be won in the trenches for this game.
Don, TCU with a wealth of talent. Who's a player on their roster that sticks out to you immediately?
Well, I think the storyline this week is who's playing quarterback for TCU. Going into the season, this is a team that has 2 good options, unlike so many Big 12 teams who didn't know who their quarterback was going to be. TCU had Casey Pawhall, who Cliff Kingsbury described on Monday as a potential first-round NFL draft pick. He started the first 2 games, but of course he gets hurt last Saturday, breaks his forearm, and so now they go with Trevon Boykin, who is not exactly your average backup, because last year against Texas Tech, Trevon Boykin threw for 332 yards and 4 touchdowns. And, of course, he was the Horned Frogs' starting quarterback for 9 games last season when Casey Pawhall was away for to seek drug treatment.
Absolutely not a downgrade for TCU at the quarterback position. Krista, what sticks out for you on the Horned Frogs roster?
I'm going with senior quarterback Jason Ferret. This season already, he has 14 tackles, 1 sack, and 4 pass breakups. I think that he's going to be key. It's going to be interesting to see what wide receiver he's going to be on, whether it's Eric Ward or Bradley Marquez, but I think that he will play a big impact in this game.
No doubt Verrett bound for the NFL when his career as a Horned Frog is done. In terms of Texas Tech's players and some of the people who stick out last week in the win over SFA, Micah Alway, the linebacker, sophomore, looked absolutely outstanding, played deep into that game, Don. A very talented individual. We actually got to speak with him during the Monday press conference, and easy to say he's one of the most entertaining players on the Red Raiders roster.
Yeah, Mike Alway's only been here for 2 years, but he's already played for 2 coaching staffs, and both those coaching staffs love him. He's a backup officially. He's a second teamer at middle linebacker, but he already leads the team in tackles. Kind of a great story, and a guy who had no scholarship offers except for Texas Tech. And Matt Wallerstedt, again, loves his energy and says he thinks in the future he's going to be a very vocal leader and a very vocal presence in the locker room. And as you indicated earlier this week, we were able to see why.
To be honest, no one. You know, I committed to Texas Tech, and no one came before. No one came, so I'm not really worried about anything like that because I'm here now and getting my degree, and I'm just glad for the opportunity because I'm a sophomore and having the opportunity to play in this, big Division I stadium. I'm glad I came to Tech because, whoever would have ever known, Coach King would come here, that big screen out of nowhere. You couldn't ask for a better story. So I really do thank God, just God. Oh yeah, it definitely does. Before I came here, I used to play NCAA, and the home field advantage. You do the little R3 button, pump up the crowd. But now, last year with that old screen, it wasn't really effective. But now on the big screen, they see you doing this, and the crowd, they can see in HD. So now we have, that sound system, the video board, the HD. Getting the crowd pump isn't as hard as it was before, and that makes a huge difference because the other team, they see you doing the same thing too. They're right there, and they might be jealous that they don't have a TV as big as ours. So it makes a difference. It gets in your head, that's for sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure they notice it, and the main thing with that is I don't do it for the glory, the fame, or anything like that. But compared to my high school days, my senior year, we were undefeated district champs, and it's because once I make a tackle, I get excited, and then I run to the ball, and I didn't even make a tackle, but I get excited too, and everyone's just getting excited, and it's a rave out there. Football is entertainment. We're out here to entertain the fans, the media. So might as well have fun because, we'll have 4 or 5 years and we're out of here. So we're, do it for the glory to God and just, be all out, go all out. And hopefully the defense will be, we'll do that every play and we'll be having fun.
Micah Alway, definitely an interesting person who we like to hear from a lot because he definitely entertains all of us when he's at the podium. That's going to wrap up our in-depth look at TCU and some of Tech's aspects right now. It's time once again, Don, for I know your favorite moment every week. What do you have in store for us this week for Don's Dining Tips? Are we going to be very pleased by this?
I'll be pleased by it. I don't know if you will be, Zach, which that seems to be kind of a recurring theme.
I think I'm in for a lot of punishment this year, but for now, here's this week's Don's Dining Tips.
What are you eating?
Vegetables, fruits, things that grow on trees and in the ground.
Idiot!
What?
Let me fix that.
Don't do that. God, seriously? What? Yeah, there you go. Just add that too. Well, this was good at one point. What? Really? Seriously? Ah! Don, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the texture of the gravy on my fruit. Really just brought out the taste.
Well, there's no sense, Zach. Gravy, it makes everything better.
Yeah, we'll see next week when my body turns into the size of a small country and has its own gravitational orb. I really appreciate that.
So you actually finished that off.
Man.
I'm impressed.
Hey, you challenge me, I step up. Speaking of stepping up, I think it's about time we put our money where our mouth is and give you the keys of the game for Texas Tech versus TCU. Don, I know you have a good key for us right off the bat.
Well, I think Baker Mayfield's got to keep stepping up for the Red Raiders. We've seen him do it against SMU, and we've seen him do it against Stephen F. Austin. Now the challenge is substantially larger. He's got a TCU team that plays, as we've said before, a really good defense. Cliff Kingsbury has expressed a lot of confidence in Baker Mayfield this week. On Saturday, he said he felt he is very comfortable and confident having him ready to go against TCU. And then on Monday, Cliff Kingsbury said, hey, this is a guy who's won state championships in front of 50,000 people. I don't think he's going to be shying away from the moment. So, but of course the big thing for him is going to be ball security. He has 7 touchdowns, no interceptions so far. He's going to need to maintain that for the Red Raiders to have a shot in this one.
Don, a key for me starts with TCU and their quarterback situation, which we now know is Trevon Boykin, and he is a very dangerous quarterback. And the thing I saw last week when he came against Southeastern Louisiana is his escape lanes. If you contain their receivers and running backs, but you forget to keep an eye on him, he busts outside or gets through an escape lane, it's 20 yards before you're going to get a hand on him, and maybe even more. An extremely gifted athlete. They all said it this week during the press conference. He is a lot better than he was at this time last year when Tech played TCU in Fort Worth, and I am right on page with that Tech's defense, especially their linebackers. Someone's going to have to keep an eye on Boykin because he's someone who can shift a game in a heartbeat and kill you with his feet.
Yeah, he's not only quick, he's also a guy who weighs about 215 pounds, so you got to actually hit him to bring him down. I've got, let's see, another key to the game. It's going to be, you're a 6-point underdog in this one, roughly. So I think another key for the Red Raiders is your best players have to step up, and in this case I'm talking about the receivers, particularly Eric Ward on the outside and Jason Morrow on the inside. Some really intriguing matchups in this one because Eric Ward at wide receiver, you have a Biletnikoff Award watch list guy versus Jason Verrett at cornerback, who's a Thorpe Award candidate, could be a finalist this year. And then on the inside, we talked about it this week on the Don versus Twitter segment. I think one of the really neat matchups, if you're just a football fan to watch in this one's going to be Jace Amaro versus those TCU safeties. We saw Morrow bust out and have a really big game last week against Stephen F. Austin. And those TCU safeties, they have 3 of them, with Sam Carter, Elisha Olabode, and Chris Hackett. All of those guys are returning starters. And, of course, the TCU defense really, on the back end, revolves around what those 3 guys do. So very important that Ward and Amaro kind of rise to the challenge and when you're going best against the best with Tech's receivers against TCU secondary.
Shaping up to be a very entertaining game on Thursday night against TCU for Texas Tech. That's going to wrap it up for our keys to the game, Texas Tech versus TCU. We'll be right back after this commercial break on the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show.
At UMC, access to your health care is only a call away. Dial 74-NURSE for free, instant medical advice from experienced and trusted UMC nurses. 24 hours a day. Learn more at umchealthsystem.com.
And welcome back, everyone, to the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. Now it's time to take a look at the Big 12 Conference, a slate of games this week that are both boring but very intriguing when we get down to the bottom half. Let's start with the aforementioned boring ones, starting with West Virginia versus Georgia State. Krista?
I'm going to say West Virginia. They're going to get stuff together. It is in Morgantown, so I think that they get stuff going and they get a win.
I think one scare against a smaller team was enough for West Virginia this year. I got the Mountaineers. Don?
A little surprised that West Virginia scored only 7 points last week against Oklahoma, particularly given Oklahoma's defensive struggles toward the end of last season. But Georgia State game gives them an opportunity to kind of get well, so I'll take the Mountaineers also.
Next up, what could be a very distracted Oklahoma State team hosting Lamar. Krista?
I'm going to give Oklahoma State this one. If they keep getting more distractions, they're going to need some wins right up front to keep them going on to a bowl game. So, okay, State.
Yeah, aside from all the stuff breaking today, really a nice win last week against UT San Antonio. J.W. Walsh looked very impressive. They keep rolling. Don?
I'm not sure that Oklahoma State will have much home field advantage in this one because I think all the Oklahoma State fans will be sitting there reading their Sports Illustrateds. But
Yep.
they probably won't need the fan support that much against Lamar. So OSU.
Kansas State continues their tour of smaller level opponents, although they got bit once for it. This is a traditional opponent for them. The Wildcats versus UMass. Krista?
Kansas State.
Yeah, Bill Snyder gets it done. I think you're going to see more of Daniel Sams this week in the backfield for Kansas State, but I do like the Wildcats. Don?
Yeah, good offensive game for Kansas State last week after the upset loss in the first week. Of course, we've seen UMass come in here before. That UMass team that came to Lubbock, remember, had Victor Cruz from the New York Giants. But this UMass team, I'm presuming, doesn't have a future NFL star on it, so I'll take KSU.
Across the Sunflower State, just a short drive, the Kansas Jayhawks, and hey, credit to them. They got a win last week, which was a huge step for them. They threw their first touchdown pass to a wide receiver since 2011, Don. This week they get the Rice Owls.
This is one of the ones that have had a really hard time picking. Rice is favored by about a touchdown. This one, 6 points or so. My inclination is to pick KU, though. They had 280 yards on the ground, and I still think Kansas is going to have a better team this year than they had last year. And I go back to, at least with James Sims, you have a starting point. So I say Kansas improvement starts this week, and they knock off the Owls.
I'm going to go against you here, Don. The running game against Rice was very impressive against Texas A&M. I have a little bit of doubt with KU. I think this is a tough challenge, and it's a game they lost last year, left a huge mark on them. I'm going to go with Rice once again. Krista?
I'm going to go with Kansas. I think with all the transfers that they have in, that this is a better team than last year, so I think they get it done.
Intriguing matchup right here, guys. Oklahoma versus Tulsa, of course. A new quarterback under center, Blake Bell, going to start for the Sooners. Krista?
I'm going with Oklahoma. I think Blake Bell is going to use this game to say, hey, I deserve to be the starting quarterback of this team, and so I think he's going to have some extra motivation to get things done.
I don't think it really matters about Oklahoma's offense. Their defense is vastly improved. Tulsa's not going to beat Oklahoma in Norman. Don?
I agree with you. You know, at the beginning of the year, I would have said Tulsa had a chance in this one. Then Tulsa, normally a very good offensive team, came out the first week and scored only 7 points. Now, they got it back last week, and Cody Green and those guys had a pretty good game. But OU at home against Tulsa takes care of business.
Next one, guys, the battle for the land of pigs and bridges, Iowa versus Iowa State. Krista?
I think Iowa State takes some pigs and bridges. I think they need to get a win this season, and I think that Iowa's kind of struggling, so I think they can get it done.
Both these teams, quite frankly, are not very good. This may be one of the last wins on both teams' schedules. I'm going to go with Iowa State because it is at home, and I think that advantage will give them a slight edge in that game. Don?
I think we're all picking the underdog here. Iowa is favored by about a field goal in this one last I checked. Iowa ended, I believe, a 7-game losing streak last week, but you know, this is the Super Bowl in that state, and Iowa State's had a lot of success over the years against the Hawkeyes, and so I think Paul Rhodes will have them. Obviously, he'll have them up and ready to go again on Saturday. I got ISU in this one as well.
I've saved the most entertaining for last, and entertaining I mean chance to make fun of things. Texas hosting Ole Miss. Krista?
Ole Miss goes all over them. Texas proved last week that they couldn't stop the run. I don't care if they have a new DC. They still have the same personnel on the field. So I think that Ole Miss is going to really take care of business.
A vastly improved Ole Miss team. They brought in some big-time recruits, a ton of speed, and the resiliency they showed in that win over Vanderbilt left a huge impression on me, and also left a huge impression on me. BYU's running backs running through the Texas secondary, linebackers, sidelines, coaching staff. Ole Miss wins this one. Don?
I don't know why, but I'm picking Texas in this one.
Why?
Maybe because the Longhorns will be fired up after they were so embarrassed last week by BYU and the upheaval of the coaching staff shakeup immediately thereafter. Of course, these are, again, the same guys who underachieved and didn't play very well last year, so I don't know why I'm showing any faith in them in this one. But I guess I'm picking Texas at home. They are a favorite. They are favored over the Rebs, and I'll stick with the Longhorns.
Congratulations, Don, for messing up the sweep. We had a good momentum going there on the Texas bashing squad.
Hey, I'll be happy if Ole Miss knocks off UT, but I'll pick.
We'll give you half credit for that. You're kind of waffling over there. Let's hope you don't waffle now, because it's time to get serious as we look at Texas Tech versus TCU. This is a big one. First Big 12 conference game for both teams, and quite frankly, it's going to be the proving ground for where we think Texas Tech is. A lot of mystery is going to be unveiled on Thursday night from the Jones. I'm going to start with you, Krista Pirtle.
This is a tough one to call. I've been going back and forth on it for quite a while, but I am going to go with TCU on this one by 3 points. 3 points. Their kicker, Jaden Obercrom, was fantastic last year with 6 made field goals out of 6 attempts. I think he's going to be a difference in the game. Also for Tech, their offensive line, yes, is kind of a struggle point, but then also all the penalties they've had. And I think against these first 2 teams, those penalties weren't really that big of a deal. They could get the stops on defense, they could score on offense, but against TCU, they have to be careful with those yards.
For me, this was an extremely difficult game to pick. I went back and forth, but last night I sat down and rewatched the game tape between TCU and Southeastern Louisiana, and a few things stuck out to me that I think is going to end up edging in Texas Tech's favor, and quite frankly, I think it starts with their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. He is very good at calling offensive plays. He has a lot of things deep in that playbook that we haven't even seen. And Southeastern Louisiana was able to play angles on TCU, hit them with some, I guess, gimmick or trick plays. At one point in time, they ran 2 straight plays within about a 5-play set on a screen to a running back. Didn't work the first time. It did the second time for a touchdown. Their quarterback did a great job with running when he could and exploiting open lanes. Reminds me of someone named Baker Mayfield. That, to me, is the key difference in this game. I think Texas Tech's offense is going to continually score against TCU. We're going to have a high-scoring game. Texas Tech, though, comes out. I'm going to go with the Red Raiders 45-40. Don Williams.
I'm going to go with Texas Tech 36-33. I mean, it's a big opportunity for the Red Raiders. The last 3 years during the Tommy Tuberville era, Tech in home games against Big 12 conference opponents was only 3-8, and you saw that home field advantage really take a nosedive and the excitement level at Jones Stadium go down. They started to recapture it a little bit last week, I thought, with 54,000 people in the stadium. And so this is kind of a big turning point game for the Red Raiders, even as early as it is now. And it's also a chance for them to do something that historically they have not done very much. I mean, the last time that Tech beat a ranked opponent within the first 3 weeks of the season, you got to go all the way back to that 1989 team that had that magical 9-3 year after they were picked to finish 6th. I think it'll be a game that kind of be similar to last year, close, high scoring, and I said 36-33. What I didn't say, this will go overtime too, Zach, just to make our lives
thank you, because that was really
chaotic.
fun last year to cover when they went 3 overtimes and we were there for like 12 hours at that stadium.
Yeah,
Don,
so it's 33-33 in regulation, and then Ryan Buston kicks a field goal to win it.
there you go. Don, do you have like a book somewhere hidden in your desk of random Texas Tech stats that you can just pull out for any situation and be able to drop these things on camera?
Well, I've lived so much of it, Zach, that I kind of recall a bunch of it. Fortunately, I guess that's a good thing for me.
That's
It's all
right.
up here.
That's right, and that's why he is here, because he is the man, the myth, the legend, Don Williams. That's going to do it for this episode of the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. We have a lot of coverage planned for you of the Thursday night game of Texas Tech versus TCU. Don, I think we got a good game day feature coming up as well. What are you writing about this week?
Writing about the special teams, Ryan Buston gave me some pretty interesting stuff about what he's had to overcome to be successful again this year. Also, it's been a good first couple of weeks for Kramer 5. Talked to Brandon Jackson, the man who switches his jersey out
Very entertaining.
so many times during the game, and to Trey Haverty, the special teams coach. It's been a pretty good first 2 weeks for those guys. So we'll let you read about it in the pages of the Avalanche-Journal.
Yes, you can see that in the paper. You can also see it at our online resources, RedRaiders.com and LubbockOnline.com, for full coverage of Texas Tech football. That's going to do it for this episode. For Don Williams and Chris DePerto, we'll see you Thursday night after the game, Texas Tech versus TCU.